So what I'm going to show you today too is this is a Japanese maple. Again, you don't want to do any heavy pruning in the fall, but if you've got certain branches that are obtrusive, that are taken away from the shape, internal branches, you can remove these this time of year without any problem. I want to show you first an improper cut here. We're going to go down to here, and I'm going to show you if you prune a branch, you need to make sure you prune it correctly. It is not pruned slap up against the stem. It's pruned between the branch collar and the branch bark ridge. Now, here's an improper prune cut. You can see a stub was left here, and you can see it's died back, and the plant cannot seal that up correctly. If correctly pruned, then this tree will seal that up. You don't need to use any type of sealants on it, no latex paint, and the plant will be perfectly fine and recover without any problem. So with that in there, you can see that it's got the stub here. That was a pruning cut that was made too high up, not into here. And so I'm going to take this and prune this off. Now, one thing nice about these Felcos is they're so sharp, you see it comes right off, okay? Now, we can do that with the Felcos without any problem on the smaller branches. You'll notice too, the way these are designed, if I move here, you see this part, my lower jaw, pushes against here and it makes me cut further away. So if you turn it around where the scissor side is there, you can see you can get very close up to the tree, make a nice cut right there. So I'm going to move down here. Let's look here real close, and we can see that these trees have what's called a branch collar right there. That's your branch collar, okay? The branch bark ridge sometimes is hard to see, but it's a line that goes back this way, okay, on this tree. Some trees are very easy to see, and some trees are not as easy to see. And you can see here on this one, you can get in there, that's your branch bark ridge, and your collar is here. The collar is just a swollen spot, and what we're going to do is we're going to prune right in front of that when we make a pruning cut. Therefore, you're not leaving the stub, but you're not pressed all the way up against past that branch collar. Again, some trees show a better branch collar, and we'll see that in a minute on a different tree when we go to the pruning saw. But I'm going to come down here, and again, this tree this is kind of an internal branch. It's growing, it's a little bit odd, it sticks out to the bottom, doesn't really add anything to the tree. And again, when I'm going to look at this, it's a little harder to see, but you can see there's your branch bark ridge, that raised ridge. There's your collar forming right in here. This is a little bit harder cut. What's nice is this is still with a pair of sharp pruners like Felcos. You can make this cut without any problem. It's very quick, very clean, and you don't particularly need a saw for this size. So I'm just going to reach in here, right here, and you can see the angle I'm trying to use. I'm going to try to come right in here and cut down at an angle. The angle that I'm using is branch bark ridge, branch collar. I'm going to come right in here and follow an angle that is kind of parallel with the way the branch goes into the tree. So I'm going to come in here like this, and not a lot of pressure, clean cut. All right, that right there will seal off on its own, no sealer needed, and the tree won't, within 24 hours, the tree doesn't even know it's been cut. So let's move now to a larger tree. We're going to demonstrate the Felco saw. Now this is it's an old dogwood that it's been failing for a while. We tend to have to do a lot of pruning on this, and I'm going to show you a couple things here that we'll show you we're going to eventually show you the correct way to do this prune. Now obviously, even though these are very sharp, this is a large enough branch where you don't want to be using a hand pruner for this. You can use loppers. Loppers are good also. Again, try to get bypass lopper versus an anvil lopper. That does much better. But this right here is easily pruned, can correctly prune with a sharp saw. Now I'm going to show you first here. I'm going to go ahead and switch to the saw. And this is a Felco 600 saw. These are extremely sharp, so you have to be very careful. One of the nice features is, as we open this, it locks with that button. So it's not going to fold up on you. Some of the cheaper, more inexpensive saws do not lock, or the lock is not that good, so that when you're pruning, this thing will fold up and that saw will come back on your hands. Even the cheaper saws are fairly sharp. They just don't last that long. This Felco, if you'll notice on the way it's ground, each individual tooth is ground, and they're extremely sharp. And also, this is a very interesting design. You'll notice it says pull action. So you move forward as you pull back, that's when you're going to get your cutting action, and it's kind of hard to see here, but those teeth are angled back slightly, and there's a chisel there toward the back side of the tooth, and that indicates that it's going to cut on its pull. And what's nice about this is the way it's designed is it's designed for ease of movement, so it doesn't bind up in the tree. So when you push this forward, it rides across that chisel point, and when you pull it back, that chisel point digs in, and that's where you're going to get your cutting action. So that's a lot of design that went into this. Early on, we had saws without this. They were an old, probably an old Swedish design that was probably from the turn of the century that the lumberjacks used, and the saws tend to bind in the tree, and it'd take a lot more effort to cut it. I will tell you this, they are extremely sharp again, so be careful, watch your hands, and make sure that you're not getting your fingers in the way. I want to show you this up here first. This right here, this is called callousing. If you can see that right there, it's looks like a horse collar that's has developed. And you'll notice here that what happened here is that branch was pruned improperly. This was a branch that had come out from the tree, obviously, but when it was pruned or broken off, it was never correctly pruned here. So that branch initially stuck out from the tree there, and it started to die back, and you'll notice there's a hole there now where the tree can't seal that up because that was a branch in there. Branches are interesting. They're almost like a ball and socket. The branch actually starts growing from inside the tree. The tree wraps around it as it grows. That's why branches are so strong. And this one, if you leave that branch sticking out, it rots inside of the tree. You end up with a hole, and you get disease in that area of the tree. If you do a proper pruning, then this callousing will cover that whole wound, and it'll completely seal it off. Okay? So what we want to look up here is, again, how to prune this tree. So here we've got the branch bark ridge. Like I said, some trees are easier to see. The branch bark ridge on this one actually comes back like this at an angle this way. And then you can see the collar right here. It's a little hard to see, but you can see the collar. And that's a swollen spot of the tree. And we're going to prune right in front of that little collar right there and take this off. Now again, you'll notice usually when you do that prune, it's going to be parallel to the trunk of the tree, but not always. In this case, we're off a little bit. Instead of just parallel, that would be parallel. We're going to move that cut out a little bit like that, about an angle there, and that's going to give us a good cut. There's another trick here you need to know. This branch does have some end weight on it, so what we're going to do first is we're going to come up here and we're going to cut this branch further out to take the load off of that cut right there. If you cut, especially a larger branch, straight at the tree without reducing the load, it's going to tear away from the tree, and you're going to have a big tear in the bark. Very hard for the tree to seal that up. It's not good for the tree. So all we're going to do is we're going to come up here. I'm going to take this side branch off real quick, and you can see how fast that cuts. And again, I push forward. You notice very easy. This is just like silk going through this thing. As the back, it hangs up a little bit. You can feel it cutting. That's how fast it cuts off there. And you can see that cut is extremely clean. Very nice cut on that. The cheaper saws will do that the first 2, 3, 4 times, and then after that, it just does not cut worth a flip anymore. So the other thing, now the next thing I'm going to do, again, we're trying to drop the load off of this. So I'm just going to come up here, and I'm just going to cut here. Now, if you're doing a large branch, you want to do an undercut also. And then when you come off for the top, it comes right off. Smaller branches, that's not as critical. The undercut's not as critical. So now I'm going to come in here, and again, what I'm after is right here on this cut. We'll see if I can get this right. So on this side right here, I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to cut. And again, the angle I'm trying to do, you notice it's not toward the tree. We're not quite parallel. We're going to move it out just a little bit right here. So you just hang on to that right there. You can see that right there. That's a good cut. And the angle, I'm in front of there's a branch bark ridge. There's my collar right there. And this is going to callus up. You'll see this coarse collar formation form over the next few years, and it'll callus up until that completely closes that wound. And again, you don't need to use any type of a sealant on it. The tree seals it up by itself within about 24 hours. It doesn't even know that branch was there. So I'm going to show you one last thing over here. Here's another branch. This is curious, it's right below. That was the stub. You see the stub is still left in the tree there. At this point, you don't want to really do anything to that. The tree's already sealed up inside. You probably do have some disease in there. But As long as you prune correctly, you're not going to hurt the tree. And again, this time of year in the fall, you may see some sap movement and some dripping. That's perfectly fine. That's the tree going into active seal-off mode. So again, on these saws, as long as you've got a good sharp saw, you're going to make that good cut. You don't want tears. You don't want it to fall apart. Make sure you do your load lightning cut first further out, and then cut only a small area off, and that'll keep it from tearing and ruining your cut. So that's the Felco pruner. Again, they're sharp. Be careful with them.